Hello everybody, it's your friendly digital technology librarian, Christy here. We've reached another Friday, so of course I have another Film Rec Friday ready for everybody out there. Now, I was just thinking about this the other day. There's something I find just at least a little bit ominous anytime I see one of those hotel vacancy signs. Now, it does not matter if that vacancy sign is bright and shiny and new, fully functioning, or if it's old and dilapidated and kind of flickering with letters popped out. It doesn't matter. I just don't like them. They freak me out. I hate seeing them by the side of the road. And it makes me think of all of the horror movies that I've watched that take place in hotels and motels. Usually, like when you drive on the back roads and you see those kind of vaguely run down little stops, and you always wonder, is there some seemingly friendly guy named Norman standing behind that front desk? You just never know. And I honestly, I get creeped out every time I see them. So because I don't like being alone in my fears, today am going to share a quick list of hotel and overnight stay horror films with you. And hopefully you will find something within this list that you enjoy, or that will at least cause you to have weird reactions to no vacancy signs when you see them when you're driving down the road too. So with these films, as with all of the ones I recommend, you can get them entirely for free with the use of your Milan-Berlin library card. No questions asked. We have some on the list today that are going to be available via digital format, but we do have at least one that's available on physical DVD and Blu-ray. So it doesn't matter what kind of preference you have as to format of viewing, you'll find something here. So without any further ado, let's head into the Rex. Okay, first recommendation. I can't, or rather I won't, make a list of hotel and overnight stay horror films and not mention this one. This is a massive title within the line of this kind of film. That is, of course, 1987's The Shining. This one is not available via digital. It is available solely on physical media, DVD, and Blu-ray, and that is through our CleveNet service, and it is 100% worth the checkout. So in The Shining, we're following our main character, Jack Torrance. He is a recovering alcoholic and an aspiring author who somehow manages to get this caretaker position at a super remote, isolated hotel called the Overlook. It's historical, it's beautiful, it's, there's all these platitudes about it. And he moves himself, his wife Wendy, and their son Danny out to this ridiculously remote hotel in the middle of nowhere, the Rockies in Colorado somewhere, and things just take a turn, man. They seriously take a turn. He starts to have a bit of a psychotic break, but that break is also spurred on by some seriously creepy supernatural happenings. And his young son, Danny, actually has some psychic abilities that allows him to see the supernatural around him, which, let me tell you, is absolutely terrifying. Like, this poor kid, and I watched this movie first when I was really, really young, and I remember being terrified for days afterward. Long hallways freaked me out. Even to this day, when I see small children dressed in identical clothing, I kind of have that knee-jerk reaction, just because there's a sequence in this film where there are identical twins in identically colored dresses, and it's just, these twins, man, they're not okay. Not okay. And so the whole thing with this movie, there's this tension about it, this building sense of dread and terror, and when things finally blow apart, it is legit terrifying. And it's a movie that sticks with you. Yes, I probably watched it when I was way too young, and it stuck with me then. But even now on rewatches, because I rewatch it every so many years, it's still really, really scary. And I know what's happening. I know all of the characters. I know the trajectory of each character arc. I know what's going to happen. And it's still really, really creepy. I still hate long hallways, like especially when they're dimly lit and you can't really see everything. I just don't like it. Don't like it. And this movie is to blame. Um, so this is, for those who might not know, based on a Stephen King novel. I would say the Stephen King novel for me is even more terrifying. So if you're looking for something really, truly, truly scary, read Stephen King's novel, The Shining, same title. Not because I'm going to be super snobby about the book is always better. You know, it's not about that. I think with these supernatural, tension filled storylines, there's something that can't beat your own imagination and the absolute terror that your imagination can develop. So if you like things like sort of slow build, constant tension, chilling scenes, this is definitely a storyline to follow. Read the book, watch the movie. You absolutely won't regret it. And check out the sequel that they made. I will say that Doctor Sleep is not as good as The Shining, but it is still entertaining, and it's nice to see what happens to Danny as an adult. And a lot of things happen to this kid, let me tell you. So again, The Shining from 1987, available on DVD and Blu-ray. Phenomenal, phenomenal horror film. It's a must-watch. Okay, jumping right into my next recommendation. This one is available on our Canopy service, and it is 1987's Dolls. Now, this is one of those horror films that it does have some scares, but it's actually just really fun to watch. It's super silly and campy and just, I think, really enjoyable. This is one that if you have some kids who are interested in horror and you do want to give them like a real horror film, but one that's not going to terrify them, this one's probably a pretty good choice. So in Dolls, we are dealing with a dark and stormy night when a group of motorists, including Judy Bauer, who is this lovely little girl, and her two rather horrible parents, end up needing to seek shelter at this really creepy looking mansion. A few other people end up trickling in on this dark and stormy night. And then, you know, while their hosts seem very, very kind and very, very accommodating, there's actually a lot more going on. This, of course, leads to murder and mayhem and craziness. And all of it is done in a really sort of like tongue-in-cheek, camp, fun way. It's one of those horror movies that I really enjoy. I think it's a lot of fun, and I think other people will like this one too. The other thing that's kind of odd about this one is it's campy, it's silly, there's horror elements, but it's also got this odd sweetness to it as well, especially in two of the main characters. Judy, she's just this sweet little girl, like I said, and this rather naive-ish, very sweet businessman named Ralph. And the two of them end up having quite the rapport as this night of terror goes on. And, you know, there's just, again, this sort of like sweetness about the story and the messaging in between bouts of murder and mayhem, of course. But, I mean, really and truly, the message is pretty nice. It's like, be a kind human being and don't ever lose that sort of childlike wonder with the world, or else prepare to be murdered by some evil dolls, like you do. So I know that sounds really strange, but in that regard, it's the kind of horror film that you can bounce into whenever. Because I freely admit, even as a horror movie fan, you know, you kind of got to be in the mood for something really dark and really heavy hitting and really like that has that sense of dread, whereas this one's one you just pop in whenever, and it's a good watch. It's entertaining. It's fun. Like I said, I've said that many times for this description. I don't know how better to describe Dolls. It's a fun little horror film. So if that's something you're looking for, something that's kind of light, that will make you laugh as much as anything, but that still has some legit scares, because it does, and it is like some of the villains, though again, it's one of those films where the villain line is is kind of fuzzy because you have these murderous dolls, but you also have some like pretty heinous human beings, where that line gets super blurred. So, even while you're watching, you're kind of like rooting for, the dolls sometimes. And the main people that you root for are Judy and Ralph, and you definitely want to see them get out of this alive. And you learn pretty quickly that because they are the way they are, they're pretty well protected in this house of horrors. So yeah, check out Dolls. It's a lot of fun. Again, I've said that 10,000 times at this point. And I think you'll really enjoy it. Okay, my next recommendation is also available on Canopy and is another rather campy option for you, and this one is 1980s Motel Hell. Now, in Motel Hell, we are dealing with a duo of siblings, Vincent and his sister Ida. They are farmers and they run this little backwoods rural hotel slash motel in the middle of nowhere. And, they specialize in this food stand that offers delicious and world famous sausage. They're really folksy. They, come off as pretty, welcoming to the people who end up at their doorstop. What you don't know is that Vincent and Ida cause the motorists who end up at their hotel to have some sort of accident, which leads them to their homestead. And they then use these overnight stay visitors to provide them with the fodder for their world famous sausage. It's really, really, really weird. But it's another one of those that's kind of ludicrously enjoyable to watch. Like, it's campy in the way that Texas Chainsaw Massacre is campy, because it's like legit scary in some parts. Like, these are horrible human beings. But you also have like this element of sibling rivalry between Vincent and his not murderous brother, Bruce, who happens to be the sheriff of the town and is not aware that his siblings are murderous hotel owners. I feel he's not good at his job. But besides that, it really does have some pretty decent tension to it. And the murder scenes are really gruesome. If you're looking for that, it's definitely got that like exploitative, violent death vibe that those kinds of movies from the late 70s and 80s did have. I mean, everybody wanted to be Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, let's be honest here. This is definitely taken from that. But the even more interesting and kind of more horrible fact is that Motel Hell is actually based on the true story of a German cannibal, Karl Denke. The fact that, like, even if this is only like a kernel of truth, that's horrifying that somebody was actually like a cannibalistic hotel owner. That's, how is that possibly real? But yeah, no, so you should definitely look up Karl Denke. I did, and I'm thoroughly horrified. But it actually adds some interesting layers to this movie because, like I've mentioned, it's definitely doing that Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibe. There's a lot of humor in it, like a lot of like gory scenes and a lot of blood and guts and murder and everything. But it's actually really even more creepy knowing that somewhere out there someone actually was kind of doing these sorts of things. Like, why? But yeah, if you enjoy that particular era's style of horror, if you like slasher films, if you like really, really dark comedy blended in with your horror, if you enjoy movies that definitely go lowbrow and fully acknowledge that they're going lowbrow, check out Motel Hell. It's a lot of fun, and definitely look up Karl Denke as well, because, man, that was an eye-opener. So, hope you enjoy. Definitely check it out. Again, available on Canopy, 1980s Motel Hell. Okay, final recommendation for today. This one is also available on Canopy, and it is much more thematically inclined towards The Shining than my other two campy options, and that is 2011's The Innkeepers. The Innkeepers follows the story of the last two employees at this historic hotel called the Yankee Peddler Inn. The Yankee Peddler Inn is famous for being haunted. There were supposed suicides and deaths within its walls, and after years and years, it's finally closing down. And before it closes its doors for the last time, the two characters, Claire and Luke, want to sort of bring to light all of these tales that have surrounded this inn for all of this time, and prove that they're real or not. They're both really into ghost hunting, and they definitely are in the life. As the days are sort of counting down to the closure, the hotel starts getting these kind of odd guests, and things really take a turn all of a sudden, and you get this sort of ongoing dread as you watch it. This is phenomenally well done as far as atmosphere. You definitely get the vibe of something coming, and you just feel unsettled for so much of the film, and that feeling of dread, that feeling of tension grows and grows and grows until you get to the climax of the movie and you're like, oh, that was a lot in a very short amount of time. And I think that's probably my favorite part of this particular film, the way that the creative team developed that tension, and they were able to really organically make it snowball, because it does really, really move very quickly at the end, and not in an inorganic way, not in a way that they're like, oh, we ran out of time, but in an actual way where it feels natural. Like when things really blow up, they really, really do. The other thing to note about Innkeepers, besides its just general awesome vibe, is that this is one of the early works from director Ty West. Now, Ty West has gotten super famous in the last few years, and this year especially, he's gotten a lot of accolades for his duo of films, X and X's prequel, Pearl. I actually talked about his films earlier this month, and in regard to Mia Goth, who he works with frequently. But he just has this really intense vision for how he wants his stories to work out, and I think his pictures have only gotten better as he's gone along. But The Innkeepers sort of is a good jumping off point for when he really started to get a good sense of how to put these films together and really build a sense of, dawning dread. So if you have seen X and Pearl, because man, those are all over the horror world right now, and you haven't seen any of Wes's earlier work, definitely recommend this one. He's got a couple of short films actually that you should also check out. But yeah, The Innkeepers, really, really, really great place to start. So once more, if you are looking for something that has that sort of really creepy vibe, and that is really well done as far as atmosphere, great rising tension within the storyline, make sure you check out The Innkeepers. Again, available on Canopy. It is phenomenal. Okay, so those were my horror hotel films for this week. If you have any recommendations for films that fit that particular category, please comment with those below. I'm always looking for recommendations with regard to that, and I would love to watch more. If you have any recommendations for themes you'd like to see us cover in the future, make sure you double check and write those ones down too. Definitely looking for help with that. As always, thank you so much for watching. I love putting these lists together, and again, as I've mentioned in past episodes, horror genre films are my absolute favorites. So this has been really, really a great time the last few weeks I've had. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Once more, thank you for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.